Hey there folks, so in this video we're going to look at taking our little character a little bit further by adding a jump animation. Now in my character here I've got a jump start, a jump loop, so maybe a falling animation, and a landing animation which could pass as a crouch in this. What we already have is we have the ability to walk and play a movement animation. It returns back to idle when we're standing still, and we can press an input button to make our character jump. But what we want to look at now is how can we put an animation onto this? How can we have it so that when we press that button, our character goes through that jump start, falling, and then landing loop? Now, one of the things that you could do is in your animation blueprint, you could start creating some animation states specifically for that. So let me just put in a couple just to show you here what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to leave these here. We'll start connecting them up properly in the future. But I'm going to go with falling and we'll have landing. Yeah, and this one here right at the end, landing. There we go. And one of the things that we might have to do if we were to go through here and think about this maybe like a 3D animation blueprint is that I'd have to think, well, could my character go from idle to jump? Could they go from walk to jump? Well, if so, they're going to end up with arrows going between each one of these. I'm going to end up with lots and lots of different transition rules, or potentially the exact same transition rule for each of these. Now, with a 3D one, we have the kind of animation systems already in there that allow us to do those kind of elements of reconnecting lots of things like a wireless connection. But we don't have that in here. We've only got animation states, comments, conduits, and jumps. If we want to go from jumping, we can go to falling, but we might also go from idle or walk to falling if maybe the floor was to fall out below us or we were to walk off a ledge. And what if we went from jumping to landing or falling to landing, landing into idle, landing into walk? There's so many different possibilities. So what we really want to do here is make this a little bit simpler. And luckily, PaperZD has a solution for that, and it's called this jump node. Now this is where it's going to be a little bit confusing because obviously I'm creating a jump node. I'm doing a jump animation state, and I'm going to put some other nodes in a moment that have jump in them. So I'm going to try and keep it as clear as possible which jump thing I'm referring to. So we've got this jump node, the one that is created here. And to make this really clear, I like to give this a to jump, to crouch, to whatever. So it makes it really obvious that that is what I'm doing. I'm going to that state. So I put that there. And what you'll see is that this is like a new input into our animation blueprint. It's not connected up to any of this stuff. Instead, we can come in and we can go from here and start connecting up into other animation states. So I'm going to connect this into my jumping because this is going to go to jump and it's going to go straight into my jumping animation. Now notice there's no transition rule here because it's just like our out to our idle. There's no rule to determine whether we can or can't. It has to go from the jump node into an animation state, in which case this one here is jumping. Now what should we do in here? Well, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put in my jump animation. Now annoyingly I've got this jump loop that keeps on coming up when I put in jump start. So let's just put in start, and you can see, oh, I've missed out the U. That's where the naming convention's gone wrong. And if I plug that in there, one of the things I would like to do is I would like to first of all turn off the loop animation because I don't want to keep on looping the jump. You don't keep on starting a jump and pushing yourself off the floor while you're going up through the air until you start coming back down. I want to play this once. I can change the play rate so I can speed it up or slow it down. But one thing that I have done is actually do that in the flipbook itself. So in this flipbook, I've just extended it out a couple of frames, and a lot of this goes to just testing this out and making sure it's definitely running. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, my jump's not working. And it might be just because you're running this on one frame and it just goes from one frame to another so quickly that you never see the jump happen. So sometimes just coming in here and just increasing your frame run just a little bit, maybe even 5, just to be able to see for those 5 frames this animation play before it goes into the next one. Once that's working, once you know the system works, you can always come back in afterwards and reduce this down, maybe getting it to 2 or 3. So for now, I'm just going to put this at 5, and it's running at 8 frames per second just to loop through on here. It's going to play that animation, and it's going to jump into there. But if I was to go in here and press spacebar, it doesn't jump. Well, that's because I haven't told him how to jump and when to jump. Now you'd think, okay, maybe I can go into the event graph of the animation blueprint and start adding stuff in here. And you can, if you're doing the transition rule options, you could go in here and say, is my character falling? Is my character jumping? You know, you can set up your own custom booleans inside of your character blueprint. You can see here we've gone and got our character, saved a reference, which means any variables that exist in that character, we can get them and set them here to be values we use for transition rules. But what we actually want to do is go into here, into our character. So I'm in my ZD character base, the side scroller one here. And I want to use my animation blueprint references that I have in here to go directly to that jump node. I want to ignore whatever state I'm in and go straight to it. Now, thinking about how this works, we've got an animation component. Inside of that animation component, we have this anim instance class reference here, which contains our animation blueprint. So if I want to pass a message into this animation blueprint in here, what I need to do is I need to drag a reference to the animation component in, and then from that, I want to get anim instance. And if we look at what that actually is, what we're doing is we're saying, let's get the component that's saved inside of here. Let's get the anim instance class, and this will give me a reference to whatever is inside of here. Now, right now, I don't need to do anything specific to this. I don't need to cast to this and check whether it's of a certain type. I can just kind of like an interface pass a message to this and say, I want you to go to here, or I want you to do this thing, because I'm just passing a message to the generic instance class. What would I like to do? Well, I want to use a jump to node, and the jump to node, it's obviously got a target for which instance are we referring to. It's got a jump name that refers to the specific jump node inside of our animation blueprint. And we also have a state machine name. So if you have a really common jump node, something like to crouch, to slide, to jump, to falling, if you're using those in lots of different state machines, maybe you've got ones for different weapons or different states of the character, well, you can actually define which specific state machine you're going into. If you leave this at none, it'll just work as long as you've only got the one that's in there. And what I'm going to do, just to make sure that I don't mess up this, I'm going to go into here where I've got this to jump, and I'm just going to copy the name of the jump node, come back in here to the jump name and paste it in there. Obviously I could type it myself, but it does just make sense to copy and paste them if you're ever worried that maybe you're not copying and writing it out exactly as it's written elsewhere. Now, what I could do is I could take this and I could plug it in after my jump functionality, but sometimes I like to keep these two things separate, because what I like to think of this is my inputs that decide whether I can or can't do an action. So maybe there's a bunch of options here that are like, well, if you're doing this already, maybe if you're in the middle of attack, maybe if you've been knocked down or hurt, maybe you're not allowed to jump. So this is the decision making of whether I can or can't do that action based on the input. And then this is the node that basically goes, cool, if you're allowed to do this, well, this is how you do it. And the jump, right now, all it does is it just applies the upwards Z velocity, pushes our character up in the air. But that jump node doesn't just do that. There's also an event on jumped. And this is an event that runs every time this runs. So anything that I want to do that is logic related to me jumping, I can put that into here. So if I take that and I connect this up, you can see now when I jump, it's going to call this node, which is going to tell my animation instance, the animation blueprint that's in there. I'm going to tell it to go to the to jump node. And what that should do is it should say, no matter where I am in this state or wherever I am in the state machine, I want you to instead go to this, enter through here. And obviously that's going to take me to my jump animation, which isn't looping. So that's going to play once. So let's just test that out and let's just see what that looks like. You can see I can walk, I can idle, and when I jump, there you go. Now, obviously he doesn't stop doing that. We're going to have to come back into here. We're going to have to add in some landing and some falling animations in there. But you can see that this does give me the option to obviously keep on jumping. And you can't see that I keep on jumping, but every single time I press and I jump, it does re-enter that jump state. It's just that my jump here only has one animation frame. So if you do have like a jump where the character launches themselves up, you should be able to keep on triggering it. The issue is that we get to here and there's nowhere for them to go. So what we'll have to look at now is how we can go from jumping into falling, into landing, and into other states. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.